dedicated in 2004. In what year is it now? 2012.
It'll be 9 years at the end of this month.
Oh, so it wasn't 2004. It was
no, 8 years at the end.
8 years at the end of this month. Yeah. It was dedicated in August of 2004, and before that, it took about 10 years to get the 10 years of organizing and design work and working with neighbors and working with the world to create what you see here now. So I have been part of this since it started. I was part of the Oregon Holocaust Memorial Coalition, which was a group of people and organizations that worked together to create what you finally see here. And we had, on the coalition, there were Jewish organizations. At the time when I joined the coalition, I worked for the Middleman Jewish Community Center, and I represented them. And then when I moved to my new job, I then represented my own organization, which at the time was called American Jewish Committee Oregon Chapter. And in fact, the American Jewish Committee Oregon Chapter was the fiscal and organizational sponsor for this memorial. So we kept the money, we kept the notes, we owned the memorial until its dedication, at which point we turned it over to the Oregon Holocaust Resource Center. And those 10 years were an amazing time and an amazing learning experience for me and for all of those who participated. We had a wide variety of participants, including representatives, say, from Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, from the Catholic Archdiocese, other kinds of places and people. Our design team, their names are listed over there, and you'll see them later. They were stellar artists and writers and landscape designers who worked with us to create this. And I'm going to just kind of describe to you what you are meant to be experiencing while you are in the different places. So this is where we start. This is where the memorial experience begins. This bench and the wrought iron work and the cobblestones, they are, and the lampposts are to remind you of a town square in some Eastern European place. So it's not one particular place, but it is to remind us of what it was like for what we call the Shoah, which is the Hebrew for the Holocaust. So here we are sitting here, and you are in the town square in Europe. You might notice that there are a few items here, and I don't know if any of you noticed that. That's also part of the memorial. And there's a child's doll, and as you walk forward, you can see the violin and the glasses and all of those little items there. These were casts of real items from the period, from the early 40s, the late 30s. These were casts of items from that period. And they are here in the town square to show how quickly people had to just pick up and leave, and that they dropped personal items on their way leaving their homes in Europe. The cobblestones are to represent the European towns as well. So now if you walk this way towards the memorial, now Sonia Marie, just cut in at any time.
So I come up here, my name's Sonia Marie, like I'm the
executive. I'm sorry,
it's okay, I'm the executive director of the Holocaust Center. So I'm typically up here with groups of students, usually I would say grades 6 through 12, although it tends to be more 9th and 10th graders curriculum-wise. So one of the questions I always ask them is, well, why a memorial like this in Oregon? So just as we walk through thinking about that, and I always tell them too that, for example, these cobblestones actually are recycled from the Pearl District. So we tried as much as possible, the designers did, to use Oregon or Northwest materials to really create this space. And I oftentimes ask them to look around and pick an object of significance for them and ask them why somebody might have taken that object with them, or what happened, why would somebody just have one shoe, and kind of have them try to think critically about what was going on instead of just giving them the answers for that. Oftentimes we have lots of musicians and they connect to the violin because that's the way that these more introverted students express themselves. So we talk about that, kind of what happened before and what led kind of to this. And I really emphasize to them that it was a gradual process. It didn't happen overnight. A lot of them think it happened very quickly. So we just take a little bit of time to explore that, and then I ask them to usually move through silently until we get to the gravel area. And you'll notice as we walk through the change in pattern to represent the railroad tracks. And the other thing that I oftentimes point out to them is that the path is very straight. There's no other choice. And that, because a big question is, well, why didn't people just leave? Here you have the ability to maybe still leave. When you're on this path, you don't have that choice anymore. And very rarely do kids step off the path. It's just how we're conditioned to be. So I invite you to continue along. A very different sound when they walk along. So one of the things we always encourage students to do is to feel and touch. So everything on the memorial is meant to be touched physically. It's not meant to be, you know, something you just look at. The textures are on purpose and the patterns are on purpose.
So over here, you can see it from the shape of the book. These are our descriptive text. Now, in our organizational meetings, we went back and forth over this text. Oh, it's too long. Nobody will ever read it. How could you? You just need to be more simple. But in the end, it was decided to put all of this information here. And I now come to believe that that was truly the best decision. This is literally set in stone, meaning 100 years from now, when we're not here, and maybe this historical event is diminished in people's minds, this information is still going to be here. I'm not going to be able to speak to you. She's not going to be able to speak to you. The survivors certainly won't be able to speak, but this will speak and will be here. And I have experienced now with kids. I don't usually bring kids, I usually bring adults. But I have experienced that adults really enjoy reading this. They stand there and read it. Every time I come, I see people over here reading. I welcome you to stand there and read the full descriptive text, or to just read as much as you like, and then we'll move on to this section.
I can also send it to you. We typically send it out to teachers ahead of time and ask them to review it. One of the things that you'll notice, too, is we're one of just a handful of memorials that's ecumenical in how we approach this period of time. So we acknowledge all the victims. Most memorials that you'll find around the world really only acknowledge the about 6 million Jewish victims. So in that process, we really tried hard to acknowledge the political victims, homosexuals, the developmentally and physically disabled, and so that's reflected in the text. And you'll see that both in this section and then the section on the back. I like to think of the memorial as both a sacred space and an education space. And in my own mind, this front part is the education space, and the back part is the sacred space. You know, it's your personal experience of it. But for a long time I just thought, oh well, it can't be both. But I think this memorial has successfully melded both those pieces, which I think can be very difficult to do. Usually I ask students to read a section of it. I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, so feel free to go up and read and
These are meant to be a collective voice. So there were 43 survivors whose testimonies were taken, and pieces of it were either combined into one statement, or because I know so many of my survivors pretty intimately, I can actually identify, like, I think that this is their story. But the idea was to have this be a collective voice for those that were both survivors and victims, so that there really wasn't one person's voice. They're arranged pretty much chronologically, so they tell the story, and you'll notice that the texture on the back is meant to be similar to burlap, or the fabric of perhaps what was worn in the uniform. And I asked students to go through, and I asked them to pick which one resonates with them the most. I'll tell you that more often it's these ones over here, the one that all of us children are crying for our parents. That's one that is one that students really connect to. And then this one right in front of us here with the dog. Yeah, Oregon and Southwest Washington, all in this region. This is one of the things that we pride ourselves on, and we find our center to be unique in, is that we focus really on the local survivor stories. So there are plenty of organizations that really have done an amazing job collecting more general information or large quantities, but we think that our niche is really connecting the community to other community members that lived through this period of time, to strengthen that connection.
I have to say, I know the readers who want to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know people who do this.
I don't know.
And I've never really talked to people about it.
Yeah, I mean, we sometimes have also teachers, we invite them to bring paper and crayons, and they do rubbings of this and then also rubbings on the other side of names. Like I said, we want it to be not this thing that is not such a wow. We really...
Somebody was So here, it is just what it says. A group of survivors went to visited each of those camps and collected soil from each of those camps, and it is buried in a little box, a wooden box, many, many feet below this big rock. And I was actually here when they put it in. It's not coming out. But for many of the survivors, they have no other memorial place for the members of their family who passed away, who were murdered, because they were never buried. They were burned they were gassed and burned. So this is what they have. This is a physical connection to them.
And the kids are often really fascinated with, like, how did this, is there really ash in it, and those kind of things. And you know, yes and no. I mean, it's from the ground, so yes, there's ash. I oftentimes tell them about the work that it was to get through the USDA and to get the soil here. I mean, it was really not something that you can just bring soil back from a foreign country. One of the students also remarked to me one day, "Did you ever notice that the text kind of looks like the base of a menorah?" I never noticed that. So they're always kind of bringing me new things. And the box that Emily spoke of is a traditional time burial box used in traditional Jewish burials, and it's also wrapped with a talit, which is a Jewish prayer shawl. And one of our survivors actually built the box from scratch for this, and he was one of the ones that went. So we're hoping to turn the footage from that trip into something that we can present to the community sometime.
This is where the names of family members of people who live in this area are inscribed upon the wall. So it was decided purposefully to list the people by family group so that it truly, I have to say, it makes a bigger impact when you see. Now, I'm over here, I'm going to show you my husband's family. They're right here. And these were all the members of my husband's family who were killed during the Holocaust. And they're listed, and then here's my husband's name and his brother's name. And it was either the survivors or the second generation who gave the names and the family relationships to the designers, and the designers spent a lot of time making sure that everything was exactly correctly organized. But it's for a kid who doesn't maybe get the impact of what happened, or for an adult who doesn't get it, when you see, you know, here's one person, and she had lost her father, her uncle, her aunt, her children, all of these children, and all of these people in her family were murdered. And that's when a kid thinks of that, it's a different kind of impact than just listing a bunch of names.
I mean, every child has a parent, and every child has, some variation of this family makeup, and so that really does impact them. We have the fortune right now to have many survivors who speak in conjunction with trips to the memorial. So oftentimes I try to know, or the docent tries to know, who that survivor is, and we stop at that section so that they can make the connection between the person that they're going to be hearing. We're not going to have that for many more years. And I'll share with you later some of our thoughts and emerging programs, but I oftentimes also, they will find their own name on the wall, which is also very impactful. And I will leave them here and ask them to remember one name. So I ask them to memorize one name, and they give it to me on the way out. So once I finish it, I say, the way that you get to leave here today is by promising me that you'll remember one name. I don't know if they actually remember it long term, but I think it at least forces them to really register that. Fresh. Oh, I was going to ask them, my Spanish is very bad, but I can speak it. My conjugation of verbs is mediocre. in the Vietnam Memorial in the sense that you're reflected back into it, because we really want to remind students that they are. Vas-y, allez chercher. Là, à droite. Là-bas. Il est sur le banc. Allez chercher.
Oh, you know, that's a good question. I bet she knows. How many names are on here?
It's 800. I think it's 800 families and 1,000 something names. I can tell you when we get to the office the exact number. I should know.
No, it couldn't be.
No, 800. There's something about 800. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Once again, we connect it back to Oregon here. I mean, this is, we say there's a handful of survivors that have had an impact here, and sometimes if there's no survivor that the students are going to hear, I'll pick, for example, there's some very prominent Portland families who have, victims here. I'll say, oh, have you guys been to the Schnitzer? Well, guess what? The family's here. Have you, and we call this the action panel because we're asking you to hear the voices of the past and to take action. So I really encourage you to take the time to really read this whole section. Unlike the history panel, which is pretty dense, I think this one is very well written and takes less time to read. A lot of the times people think the memorial ends here. And in some sense the sacred and the education part of it does. But I always ask people who are gathered here, well, who do you think paid for this? And where did this come from? And why did this happen? Because I think oftentimes we see these memorials around town and we assume the city did it, or, I don't know, they've always been there. And I invite students to make an active choice. And I tell them, look at this path compared to the path that you were on. This path has curves, it has options, it has ways you can go. And I ask them to meet me at the donor column, which is right over here, so I'll ask you to do that as well. And you'll notice on it, like Emily mentioned, that it's a whole community that gathered together to create this memorial. So you'll see the shoe, for example, in the town square. That was donated by Nordstrom's, right? Big shoe store. But this is an entire community endeavor. And we really want people to remember that they too have an impact on their community and that they can create things like educational memorials or just be actively involved. So I do ask them to come and to actually look at the donors, because I think it's important. And you'll see on there, the archdiocese and So I have the conversation with these students about, you know, how did this happen? People didn't vote, people didn't engage, people didn't stand up. We talk about accountability, about one's role within a larger society, and one's obligation to a fellow human being. And a lot of it depends on the age of the student, how long they've been studying this, what other areas they've looked at. To me, the lessons of the Holocaust are so varied. If you look at, even today, like the Hippocratic Oath or laws against experimentation, or on trial or medication, all those things came post-Holocaust because of what had happened. So it reverberates into, you know, medical ethics, civics, psychology. I mean, it's just the transmission of trauma, the way that we remember, collective memory. So any approach that I can, I try to integrate it, depending on who I'm talking to. It can sometimes be overwhelming. People don't realize the ripple that one single event can have. Now we're learning more and more that most likely the number of victims are going to be going up. There's a whole, since the Soviet wall collapsed, there's been a whole expansion of ability to get into files and archives that weren't before, and most of the killing on the Eastern Front was done by bullets. So the finding of mass graves and those kind of things are starting to occur more and more, and what they're recognizing is that their estimates were very low. And oftentimes the conversation in classrooms is focused on concentration camps, that's where everything terrible was. And I always remind them, well, there was actually only really 6 killing camps, and there was lots of concentration camps that were used for forced labor or various things, and a lot of the killing happened in the middle of town squares with people just getting shot. So it can happen in your literally backyard. It doesn't have to be hidden in a camp, and the camps weren't that hidden anyways. So I love coming up here with groups of students. They always bring a fresh perspective and new ideas, and I also welcome any questions that you have about anything. I'll be speaking to you a little bit more later about what we do. People might think it's weird that I have my 4-year-old, but to me, it's part of what I do. It's because of him. I feel very lucky that my kids have gotten to just hang out with survivors and been at board meetings since they were really little. And my grandfather was a member of the resistance in Southwest France, and a portion of my family was killed. And on the other side of my family, I'm half Catholic, half Jewish, that side of the family in France were POWs during the war, so my great-grandfather. So I also, we also speak about liberators. We've had a number of liberators serve on our Speaker Zero, talk about the connection between, you know, that part of service too, and the horror of servicemen who arrived in camps and had no idea what they were doing and what they were expecting. So we like to present all sides. Do you guys have any questions? Happy to answer them now.
And we also want to welcome and give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves if they would like.
Greg Lee from Portland here.
Okay. Miles Joseph from Portland. Mike Tabor, filming, just documenting the HRC.
Lavon Easter from Portland Commission on Disability.
Thank you, Lavon.
Renee Christian, Portland.
Our culture, Portland.
I'm Sonia Ray-Lycum. Welcome to my home. I'm the Executive Director of the Oregon Holocaust Resource Center.
Thank you for having us.
And that is Polo Katalaki, the person who keeps us going from the Office of Equity and Human Rights.
Thank you for the food.
Thank you for the food, Polo, and also Emily brought food from...
The middle one too.
I brought the falafel. You do have an Israeli
Good afternoon.
Thank you. All right. So we also are going to hear a little more information about the, up at the memorial, we heard about the development of the memorial, but also want to hear a little more about the place we're in, the Oregon Jewish Museum and the Oregon Holocaust Resource.
All right. Well, welcome. Like I said, I'm going to stand. Is this a good spot for a good spot? Okay. So welcome. You are standing in the lobby of the Oregon Jewish Museum, and the Oregon Holocaust Resource Center offices are located to your right. We're two separate nonprofits housed under the same roof. So we work together in telling parts of the Jewish story of Oregonians. But as I mentioned before, at the Holocaust Center, we do much more than just talk about the Jewish victims of the Holocaust. We really are ecumenical in our approach, and we work to honor all victims. So I wanted to show you a few of the things that we do and tell you a little bit about some of our programming. Those of you that were up at the memorial had the opportunity to see what is maybe our most visible program, which is the Oregon Holocaust Memorial in Washington Park. We host about 100 school groups there a year. We work with all sorts of students, everything from parochial students in Vancouver to students from Madras will come in. So statewide, we host them there with volunteer docents who lead them through and tell them a little bit about both the history and the place that they're standing in. We also have a variety of other programs, and I brought a couple things to show you. You'll see around you some of our artwork from our annual art and writing competition. We've been running an art and writing competition statewide for the last 22 years. We receive on average 400 to 600 entries. It depends on the year in the art and writing combined. We work with a variety of educators, and the prompt changes every year based on either things that are happening in the community or historical events, or to address certain issues that we think need to happen. This year's prompt will be released August 15th, and it has to do with dropping a stone and having a ripple effect. So we're asking students to reflect on their ability to have a greater impact with one action. So we really tried to take the lessons of the Holocaust, the essential things that we think are important, and place those in a context that students can relate to. We also ask them to look past just this historical event and connect it to current events. So you'll see, for example, the winner of this year is right behind you over there. There's no necessarily Holocaust imagery in it, but we're asking them to take it one step forward. I also have brought to show you a couple of things. One of the things that we do is we distribute curriculum throughout the state, and we do so in different forms, but one of the ways that we do is through our curriculum trunks, and so if you're interested later, I'm happy to show you them. These are based on local survivor stories. So this one talks about safe havens. The Dominican Republic was one of the few places that was open to people who were leaving during the Holocaust, and it was actually to whiten their population. So ironically, they were asking those that were being rejected from one community to come into their community to whiten the population. So this trunk follows Miriam Gerber, who is one of our local survivors who went through the Dominican Republic. So there's a DVD of her testimony, there's lesson plans and activities, and each one of the trunks is slightly different. Some have CDs to evoke music of the time. We have one on hidden children, we have one on rescuers that features some of our local righteous Gentiles, or, as I mentioned before, liberators. So we try to connect that in. So we have that, as well as teacher trainings that we hold every year. We typically hold at least one beginning and then one advanced. This year we'll be holding actually 3, one of which is August 23rd. If you know any educators or active activists, we're shifting our gears a little bit, and we're doing something on this film, and I have flyers for you and postcards called The Last Survivor. So what we're really trying to do is once again connect the dots. So this film follows Congolese, Rwandan, Darfurian, and Holocaust survivor, and it weaves their stories together. So we're going to be offering the community some tools on how to talk about genocide in general, and how to begin that conversation in their community using the Holocaust as a model and connecting it to more contemporary genocides. So that's a shift for us as a center. It's a national shift that's occurring in most Holocaust centers, and it's really something new and exciting for us, so we're really excited about that step forward. And it's at Portland State. So we have that, and then we also do workshops and collaborations, for example, in October with the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, where we give teachers the tools to really have conversations in their classrooms and certain guidelines and things that we really believe that educators should be respecting when talking about this. So those are kind of the things that we can do without survivors, but of course our survivors right now are at the heart of our programming, and they go out and they speak to approximately 30,000 people a year. That includes in prisons, in schools, in churches, throughout the state, from everywhere from the very southern tip to out in eastern Oregon. And we are really faced with the challenge of what's next. So we're inviting the community throughout this year to have a conversation about what do we do without these firsthand testimonies who are so powerful. We have an oral history collection that encompasses currently 89 survivors that are here in the local area. We're actually expanding that. There's a large Russian survivor population that we started filming. It's been difficult to have access to that community, but we're finally breaking in, and we've got 2 so far, which is a big step. And we'll be filming an additional 8 this fall. So capturing that and then turning it into something usable is also kind of where we're at. So we've been meeting with, for example, the Portland Storytellers Guild, talking with them about how they can work our survivor testimony into storytelling. I've been working on the concept of developing an app for the Oregon Holocaust Memorial so that when students are there, they could access survivor testimony directly and hear the voice of somebody who is on the wall. We're really just exploring and getting ready to hopefully pilot some programs that can bring us forth in the future. We don't have a museum space. The Oregon Jewish Museum, like I said, operates separately from us, which is a challenge. I think a lot of centers do have an exhibition space that they can really bring students to. So that's one of the things that we're looking at is can we create traveling exhibits that go out into the community in public libraries or throughout the state. So that's just a little snippet of what we do. I know your time is limited. So if you have any questions, I will be here the whole night, and I'm happy to answer anything. Is there anything you think I missed?
Would you show them the
I will. So these books are, I have out for you a gift from us. These are the Oregon Holocaust Memorial books that we normally sell them, but we're happy to give them to you this evening. And they have the text, they have images of the memorial, they have a variety of declarations from the governor and things like that. And it really is a beautiful booklet that lists all of the victims and has them on there. So those of you that were interested in reading the text more intimately and having that experience, you're welcome to do so. It's just right here. So these are here for you. And you're welcome to also take brochures regarding the memorial. And then we just have a brief history. We're going to be celebrating our 30th year here in 2013. So we're really excited about that. A lot of people don't know we exist, but we've kept ticking on in various incarnations, and I think we're really poised for some amazing growth in the next few years. Unfortunately, as our survivors transition, but I think we've got some amazing opportunities to do some really, what I find to be the best work.
I'd just like to say one thing. If you are connected with a group of any kind, and if you know this group has never heard a story from a survivor of the Holocaust, I strongly, strongly recommend that you call the Resource Center and schedule a program with whatever group it is that you have. The bigger the better, but these people are not going to live forever, and in fact, they are dying. And there are stories to hear the story from the person in front of you who experienced such things that we can't even imagine. That never goes away from you. And I just strongly, if you are connected with any group that could benefit from hearing those stories, I recommend you do it now before it's too late. And just call the Oregon Holocaust Memorial.
Or go to on our website, we have a speaker request form. And it really is a challenge, and we have a number of second-generation speakers who are starting to speak, but they don't have the same effect. And it's really not the same. And the reality is that, Oregon is a big state, and we don't have that many survivors to begin with, compared to maybe some areas like Los Angeles or New York or Florida. We really, there can be weeks where we only have 3 people to choose from because of their health. It's really fluctuates.
Approximately how many survivors are there in the state of Oregon?
So this time last year there was 96 that were on our registry. The definition of what is a survivor has since expanded to include this Russian Jewish survivor population. So it's kind of a sticky question, because who is a survivor? Actually, the definition evolves and changes. I would say probably around 200 at this point if you include the Russian survivor population. But that's oftentimes a very disputed question of who is a survivor and who gets to receive that status. And my philosophy is, if you say you're a survivor, you're a survivor. I'm not in any position to question your life experience. And certainly, one of the things that I would like to leave you with is, that we really believe that teaching this particular period in history and having the stories heard is a way, it's an entry point to really build a more humane and just world. Kids really connect to this time in history. They're fascinated by it. We see that over and over again in the classroom. There's other areas that they're just not fascinated by, but overwhelmingly, we see this as a way to really teach kids to be better people. That's just the bottom line. So. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm curious about the historical trauma associated with an event like this within a community. Genocide within the Native American community has left a legacy of multi-generational trauma associated with historical trauma. And I would love to bring a presentation of the stories of a survivor into the Portland Youth and Elders Council. I think it's a way to heal, but I've also discovered that it opens up wounds in the community, and unless you have professional help there to be able to catch some of that effect, I wonder, I think that's a piece to think about when you do exercises with this in the community, but I wondered how relevant historical trauma is to the Jewish community.
There's a lot of research about the transmission of trauma through the generations. I think there has been a segment of the community that's been so open to speaking, and then another segment that's completely shut off. And in fact, we're seeing post-traumatic stress come out in homes with elderly survivors as they develop Alzheimer's and they start to go back in their memories. I think what's so interesting about the Jewish people in general is that this is not something that's only happened once to our people in the sense of being persecuted. it's happened over and over again, and this was just one horrendous manifestation of what I think is, generations of this trauma. So to some extent, I think we kind of, there's that saying that, for Jewish holidays and commemorations, is they tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. And that's a very simplistic maybe answer. I think it's embedded in our psyche to deal with the trauma to some extent. I don't know. It's really interesting, but there's some great work on that transmission of trauma through generations. And in fact, one of the most prominent people who did that was a survivor himself. And he talks about the importance of testimony and having people hear your testimony in order to fully heal. And his name is Dr. Dory Lau. And we're hoping to bring him sometime this fall, but he is quite elderly. So when we asked him to come last, he said, I don't think I can do it too many things in 1 week. So I don't know if that answered your question at all, but
It leads into more discovery about how to heal from devastating situations in populations.
well, and I don't think there's an answer. And the other thing is, as you move forward, who wants to be defined by it? So it's part of learning to have it be a part of your identity, but not be the defining part of who you are. Yet it contributes to who you are and how people see you. I certainly know that the Jewish community doesn't want to be seen as victims, as weak, as people who were brought forward and just murdered and slaughtered. That's not who we want to be. And so for many people in the community, when you talk about the Holocaust, that's their fear. And they don't see the complexity of it. And I think that whenever you're dealing with this kind of human incidents and life, it's so complex. You have to leave with more answers and more questions than answers. So,
Would you get your business card in that?
absolutely, I will get my personal. No, my business card is here.
Oh.
But I do have my personal business card. That's the office one.
Oh,
You're
okay.
welcome to contact us. We're on Facebook,
If you just pass them around.
I will go grab them off my office and bring them forward. And like I said, I'll be here the whole time. I'm more than happy to talk to you about my personal thoughts. And my personal thoughts are different than sometimes what the center's thoughts are, which is fine too. And hopefully you will join us at different events and things throughout the year. We've got some exciting speakers and workshops and people coming. So thank you very much.
And Alan, I did want to just say that behind this wall is the whole large food hall from the Oregon Museum. I didn't realize this, but museums like people walking around when their staff is here. So, but you can poke your head in there and see there's an exhibit on the Jews in sports. It's Oregon Jews in sports, because the whole thing. And so you can take a peek in there, and then this little area is the effigy is open.
Well, I do want to say again, thank you, Emily, and when you left, but away from it, but thank you for bringing us here and to the memorial. Again, the opportunity to see these memorials to this manifestation of hatred and discrimination are important. Not only opportunities for kids to learn about how to hold humanity, but for adults too also. And at this point, it's been our tradition for when we're out visiting folks, I entertain a motion that we would like. I think I'd like to get the opportunity to sit and talk with Sonia maybe about how, if we made a contribution, how we might help the center. I really like what she said earlier about the collaboration between the center and the Oregon Nakai legacy. So it might be something very interesting to explore that we might be able to support. But I would entertain a motion that we allow the executive committee to maybe explore further how we can help the programs here support our mission of ending discrimination and bigotry and furthering greater inclusion and justice for folks in Oregon.
Also moved.
I'll second. So, and I would put a friendly amendment that we put an upper limit on it of something like $500, so that we have the executive committee can work with the center to find an appropriate way for us to help support both their mission and our mission. So that is the motion in full.
Accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. All right, all in favor of the motion as stated with a show of hands and an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're a little bit over in time, so I want to go ahead and move to public comment before we move further into our agenda. It's about 5:30 now, and then we'll deal with the needs of the agenda. Is there anybody signed up for public comment?
Yeah. Do you have the list, Paul?
Is there anybody who would like to provide public comment?
I had a couple questions.
Yeah.
One would be, when you realize that there are human rights being violated, where do they go legally? What's your legal process, like whether it be United Nations legal process, or how does that work?
Well, we don't have any. We are an enforcement body, so we are an information gathering and advocacy. So we don't actually provide any enforcement.
Where would you point them to? What would you?
Depends on where it is. So the city of Portland contracts, for instance, with Foley for civil rights violations.
So the local law firm is what your law firm.
Foley
is the State Bureau
of Labor and Industry.
Yeah. So that there are other avenues, but we're always interested in hearing where those violations might be occurring, so that we can help obtain resources that we have.
Can I just also clarify, if it's a hate crime, the Portland Police, they have a detective, Kevin Warren, whose job it is to do hate and violence crimes. He's a fantastic guy, and if that's the problem, I would recommend contacting Kevin, Detective Warren at the Portland Police. The other kinds of things are, depending on where it is and what it is, the FBI is also very interested in working on hate crime issues. So, for example, if your neighborhood was leafleted with papers that smear Latinos or that smear African Americans, that's not, unless it's thrown like litter, that's a free speech thing, but the FBI still wants to know about it. They want to know what the thing looked like, and they want to know where it was and where it happened. So, and Portland Police would always listen to that as well. There are different kinds of human rights issues, and depending on what that is, I do think that we are equipped to help people figure out where they should turn.
Great. And we're very interested in hearing about systemic issues of human rights and civil rights violations, again, that we might approach from a policy perspective.
Would you like to mention the coalition?
Yes, thank you. The Coalition Against Hate Crimes exists, and I'm one of the organizers of that too. And so that is a roundtable where anyone can come, but we get people from law enforcement as well as community leaders and advocates to sit around the table and talk about issues of hate crimes. And these are not people who might hang out together normally.
Sure.
So it's a great forum, and it's on the last Thursday of every month, except for this month because it's August and we're taking it off. So, but the group meets on the last Thursday of every month from 10 to 12, and we meet at the Office of Equity and Human Rights on the 5th floor of the Commonwealth Building. If you want to give information.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else in this conference?
Commissioners, we have a bit of a staffing squeeze in our office always. And Commissioner Levon Hester of the Portland Commission on Disabilities needs to be back there at 6 o'clock. She is a Portlander with disabilities, and if I don't take her there, she'll never get there before that meeting starts. So either one of us can leap up and take her downtown, or I could, and we'll all take notes in the absence. Michael has his video camera running.
Oh,
Catch up.
actually, I was trying to catch your attention, but couldn't.
Yes. Wait, Arms.
6:30.
6:30.
You can get me there at 6:30.
Very cool. And also, the commission has asked if, since they're sending a liaison here, if you could consider sending also one to the Disabilities Commission.
For each meeting?
I don't know, I was just asked to bring that message from Patrick.
Is this commission regulated by the articles of the Declaration of Human Rights Declaration?
Our work is based partly on the Declaration and other civil rights and human rights documents, but regulated that is not quite, but yeah, we're guided. Yes, so mostly we're guided by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Do you have anything like that in writing, what those are?
Yeah, right here.
You're all right, that's what I was looking for.
Well, we have blue booklets too. I don't know if
We do.
with
I
that.
don't know if I would.
Yeah. And it's available. A good place is the UN website has a whole history of the Declaration and also the full copy.
Okay. Are you referring to the articles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There are 30 articles of the Declaration.
All right.
I think it might be the sheet, the line was very full and line.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to put in the key liaison for discussing later. Well, thank you for those comments, inquiries, and other such items. Anything else from the public?
No. Can I get your card too? Do you have a card? I'm going to visit Emily. I just have a couple of questions. I don't want to waste your time. I'd rather just do it private.
I've got a question.
Not a question. Time for me to speak?
Sure.
Public. I sent the commission a video that I took of some mothers walking down MLK. I don't know if you've all had a chance to see it. Just kind of throwing it out. I sent it to HRC Contact and asked if he could share it with the commissioners. So I looked on your website a way to get a hold of you, and there's just one contact there.
Point.
Huh?
Something we need to know.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out where that goes to, but yeah. I think it's Sheriff's Day.
The video was just to share with you guys. It's kind of going around town a little bit. I was with some mothers who are concerned about incarcerated children in the mental health facilities and being put on drugs and having a hard time to get their children back. And same with the prison system. They just happened to be going down Martin Luther King on a 100-mile walk up to Washington, Tacoma. And as going down Martin Luther King, there was a police stop on the corner with 4 young black people, 3 men, 1 girl, sitting on the curb with about 10 or 11 officers, all white. And it was an hour-long process. We stopped and I videotaped, and the mothers asked what's going on, and we read names of people who had been shot and killed by the police, and it was kind of intense. A lot of community people on the sidewalk, and virtually nothing was found in the car. They totally searched it. It was what I've heard about for a long time. It goes on in Portland and in certain parts of town. I actually was there to see it and captured it. There was nothing super horrendous going on except for these elements of a bunch of our officers standing around for a whole hour. I don't know all the dynamics of the people involved, but it's controversial in the sense that it exposes an issue here in Portland. And it might be worth just looking at and getting a feel of how that resonates with you and the discomfort of everybody involved. And so that was just something I wanted to share. It is going around. And you can find it on Google by just Joe Anybody Moms Police. If you put those words in, you'll find it. MOM for Mothers of the Movement or something like that.
Thank you for getting that one.
Yeah. On a side note, unrelated, different topic, I was just going to throw out for the public record that I haven't seen much of your new boss, Dante, and I was hoping he was going to be here, then I wouldn't have said this, but since he's not, I just would like to see a little more of how he's engaging with you guys and a little more involvement. I only come to your meetings, so that's the little bit I know, but I don't see much, and I'm just kind of putting out publicly. I'd like to hear and feel more of what his engagement and his involvement, if that's in the realm. I don't know if that's his job description. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
We'll be talking about that a little further this evening.
Throwing out some encouragement from the public
Yeah.
to hear more of his voice.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks
And
for all that you're doing.
Thanks for pointing out that video, because I have not heard or seen it yet, so it has not come through to us in that channel. So
Okay.
we'll find out how that connection works.
Thank you.
All right, so I think that wraps us up on public comment. Now, so let's take a quick look at where we are on approval of agenda and minutes. We are a little behind on time. Not a little, we're a lot behind on that. We're behind by not quite a half hour. I will say that our biggest main topic tonight, I think, will be, we can hold our discussion on organizational structural issues, I think, down a little bit. I think it will provide us an opportunity to approach more general things that we have going on. It doesn't have to be too detailed. And then also in committee and liaison updates, I think there are a few items in there that will be fairly quick that we can talk about. So I feel like, you know, we're scheduled to end a little bit later this evening because of our time to regather. So we're scheduled to end at 6:45. So I feel like we can still do it this evening. We just have two big topics to cover. So with that, and you have before you minutes from July, minutes of our July meeting. So I'll give you a moment to look that over and tell me if you have any substantive changes to what you see there. And then after that, we'll entertain a motion to accept our agenda as shown. Actually, there's some small amendments to it. And the minutes. Was there an agenda that was passed out tonight?
It's on the, might have been like below.
Okay. There's a small time error on there.
Yes.
That I picked up on. But I think, again, we could...
Oh, we went from 5 back to 4:50.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
kind of interesting.
So I think that where we might pick it up with no final, but is that ending piece has an extra bit of time in it for announcements and such. So we can pick up that 10 minutes.
So we don't mind typos. We need to point out typos.
On the minutes?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
I know what it means.
To the agenda, can I do the liaison issue with the
Yeah.
If either on this agenda if we have time, if not, then I think it should be carried over.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Can we just tell you any changes?
Sure, yeah. Just yell them out and we'll pick it up.
So on the minutes on item 5, the end of the first paragraph, the federal department of housing and development regulates real estate transaction, permanently enforcing fair housing standards. I would just edit it to say the federal department of housing and development enforces fair housing standards.
On number 4, I wasn't there, but if we go up to the second paragraph on page 2, it just needs a couple of words in there to make the sentence make sense. Commissioners agreed with Mr. Pulip that the strategic plan or the draft plan or whatever it is, we just need something in there to know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Any other substantive changes to our July minutes?
Well, can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I am listed as being there because I was, but I was not there when the strategic plan was voted on, and I don't know how to indicate that in minutes, but I did not vote to approve it, and I probably wouldn't have. Okay. So, putting that out there.
According to Robert's Rules of Order, you were there for any part of it, you were there for the whole part, so you have to take these to the rest of it.
I'm just pointing it out.
Was there? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So we might actually have to change it to not just say it was approved unanimously. We might have to say all who voted.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
I thought there was also an
Abdul. There was an
Yes, thank you.
So we might have to correct that. So it very accurately reflects who voted for it. Anything else on the minutes or agenda?
I don't know if this fits in this agenda thing, but on housing, I have been asked to bring before you the program that exists titled Occupy Portland. But it's to advocate and to stand with those folks who are facing eviction. And there's now a growing movement, and they wanted to know if this had anything to do with us or if we want to have anything to do with that. So I'll throw that on the table for future discussion.
Yeah, I would like that. Something we want to learn more about.
Thank you.
All right, with that, shall we have a motion to accept the July minutes and our agenda for this evening as amended? I would.
I would second that.
All right, all in favor of accepting the July minutes as amended and tonight's agenda by show of hands and an aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I just have a comment that I couldn't do this experience.
Okay. Thank you. And Myra tells us she has to leave at 6:30. All right, so we will move on. We are now on item number 4, discussion on HRC organizational structure, which is a pretty broad category right now. The first part of that, though, I will turn over to Amy and Myra for just a second to tell you where we are on our putting together our working agreement with the office and next steps.
Well, we have the MOU. We did not receive a lot of comments on it, so we're assuming that for the most part everybody's in agreement. We did add the information about staff and take some things based on the comments that were made at the meeting. We will be meeting on the 6th with Dante, Amy, Alan, myself, and Dante, just to go through the MOU and make sure that it's something that works for the HRC but also works for the office, because what we want is a more collaborative approach and move forward with different things, more involvement from the office and also support or understanding of what are the needs of the commission and also understanding for us of where the office is moving. So kind of just to move forward with things and projects and different aspects of things we want to do that might come up in the future. And then after that, we'll present the final draft to the HRC, and then we'll have a final vote on it and get it signed and move on.
Well, it seems that Myra was the 6th of August, you mean?
Yeah, this Monday at 10 a.m.
And you sent the MOU draft?
Yes, well,
I did.
Mhm.
Go to Dante. Did he receive that last version? Yeah.
he did.
I'm assuming
Yeah, so we're meeting with him to talk about it. So we are doing some changes. It's going to be a shorter version. It's going to be less, based on also some feedback, it's going to be less wordy. It's going to be more informal in a way, because what we want is to create that, in a way, comfort level between HRC and the office. And so it's not so like squared. And then we are going to go through it and then figure out, like, come up with a final draft that works in a way that both parties are comfortable with.
So yeah, my interest is in those of you who particularly want to be involved in this station, and so do that. I think the comment that we heard through Alan was that there's a request from Dante that it be less prescriptive and more general. So I think that's going to be the bulk of our conversation. And so at the same time, with that information, I do want to say, the way that I feel is this is still a negotiation process. So if you guys feel that there's prescriptive points in there that need to be included or certain within that spectrum, I think that would be important
We know time. The deputy director, Joe.
Joe Wall.
Yeah, what's our relationship going to be with him? Are we going to have, should we be thinking about considering his role in our work as we move forward as well?
I don't know that there is any prescribed role other than, and I think it's sort of a micro. I think that as we go through creating this working agreement about how we relate to the office, we need to be creative, understand what Dante's role is, and I assume that Joe's role will be very similar in Dante's place. But I don't think he has, relative to us, I don't think he has a specific role. That's part of the question.
I'm sorry.
I had a different thing, so if you wanted to.
In an earlier incarnation of our discussions about OEHR and staffing for our commission, there was discussion about how the person who would staff us or who would be our designated person would be something along the lines of an assistant or deputy director. So, I mean, it seems like the goalposts keep getting moved.
Right. No, and I think that part of the discussion essentially went away a long time ago. I think we've been pretty much informed and clear on. I mean, so let me update you on the staff position part. There is, we went through the process of that Damon helped put together that job description. We brought that to Dante. They are actually right now in the process. He actually, if I get back in my notes, we met with him on the 23rd, so a week ago Monday. And at that point, it said that the job description was actually at HR and would be advertised in the following week. I assume it would have been last week or this week.
So did you get to see the job description that was sent to HR?
I have not seen the job description that was sent to HR. The other thing that we know about the job is that we know that it's a program coordinator person whose other part of their job, in addition to the HRC, is to staff what has been called the Citywide Diversity Committee and will become the Citywide Equity Committee. So it is a group that each bureau is required to send a representative to, and my impression is that it's where it will serve as the conduit for much of the technical equity work that will come out of the office through into the bureaus. Will go through that conduit. Those people will represent, for instance, each bureau has to create an equity strategic plan. Each bureau has to consider equity in their budgeting process. So that's how those bureaus will sort of get the word on what's required of their bureaus. So that's the other piece that the staff person will do. It's a program coordinator.
So to maximize our effectiveness and what we do, the work we do, I would like prescription in the memorandum of understanding, MOU. I don't want a 50,000-foot viewpoint of like, hi, we're going to get along. But I agree we don't need like the 10-foot off the ground one either. It does need to be close to the ground. It does need to be as specific as reasonably possible to avoid these things, because otherwise we will perpetually be caught in the cycle of not having what we need.
And I think the one thing that's important for us is this is not like we're going to just change it up to what is wanted. It's more like this is what we're presenting, and I think we're going to be okay. This is our draft. What changes or tweaks would you like to see, and then that's what we'll level it out in a way. So it's not going to be super, general that, like you said, it's going to be like nobody knows what's going on, but it's not going to be, 8.1, 8.1, 0.2, 0.3, so it's pretty detailed. So now it's just, we have the draft, we can move forward with it, find a common ground that works for both, and then we move on. So another thing we don't want is for this MOU to take 6 to 8 months to be done.
Yeah.
Right? So that's we want to meet with him on Monday, we'll take the comments. If there's any final comments from the HRC, we'll put it together and we'll deliver it as soon as we can so we can start implementing and moving on.
David?
How do you feel about just sharing a little bit about the different role, it's called roles, or where program coordinator fits into the city of Portland staffing in terms of like how to explain it to us as a program specialist, program leader, and that way, and kind of addressing what I was talking about.
Sure. I don't know. I sort of don't know enough about it. Can you say more about it?
Or maybe Polo can, but he was, Dante was very specific in terms of, I mean, in terms of staffing, there are different titles mean different things, program manager, coordinator, specialist. So he said he wanted to make sure we're a coordinator, which is, from our understanding, especially a step up from a specialist, is what was not a program manager.
I think a manager, I think the difference is a manager has to literally manage people in the city hierarchy. So that's why it wasn't a program manager. So, you know, then it just becomes a matter of semantics.
Specialist coordinator manager.
More of a No.
No, I was looking at David's.
Oh, sorry.
So we're getting the coordinator.
It's a program coordinator. That's the official title. And again, our hope is that it's a person who can provide us some policy direction and those kinds of things. What was outlined in the job description?
Couple of points. My assumption is that as we had a chance to look at MOU, was it our last meeting? And then since then you've given us a lot of opportunity to comment on it. And my assumption is that the document that I saw is what more or less this table affirms. And if there is proscriptive language, I think that's what we would affirm also to second Stephen's comment. If the object here is to get a document to which someone will agree to, depending upon our ability to shy away from those points that we think are important, I'm not so sure that that is the art of politics. I'm not so sure that that's the art of compromise. I see, then you notice I've been pretty quiet over the last several meetings. I see the erosion of what we have been voting for just taking place in front of my slowly. And the work we've done has been magnificent in trying to staunch that flow. But we are over a barrel in that we're now forced to play by all of the nomenclature and description of city as it relates to our work. But, you know, here we are talking about program manager, what is he or she is not, and I don't see how this person is going to be able to work with us, given the fact that that person has to work with the other bureaus. How many bureaus? 26 bureaus of the city. I see the same dynamic taking place with Maria Lisa when the commissioner decided to make her time with us 40% as opposed to 100%. So again, we're going to be short-handed in terms of staffing. And at some point, friends, I mean, we either stop where we are and say this is as far as we can compromise, or else why don't we just go the days of the cliff and start again?
I think my comments are kind of resonate in what you're sharing, Hector, that I want to let go of my experiences with this, you know, how the HRC is evolving from what we were mandated through to the original ordinance that brought many of us to the work. And then there's this opportunity that we're missing. I hear from Mike's comment about seeing the director of the Office of Equity and Human Rights more connected and working in tandem with what the Human Rights Commission is doing. I guess where I'm really trying to settle is that when we have a staff person come on board that's dedicated to helping us advance our work, part of their focus will be internally in that bureau, and that's a different breed of animal than what we're assigned to do here as the Human Rights Commission, which is focused externally in the community. How do we build skill around informing Dante and his staff and the work that they're doing in OHER, weaving that out external experience and perspective into the work that they're doing, and helping him and the staff share with us externally what it is they're doing, because they're two different tracks of work. Somehow they should complement each other, and that's really our charge, ultimately. At this present moment, while we're working on an equity initiative in the city, how do we take owners of that and build that?
Yeah, I think part of the hope was that there would be language for that that would clarify and define that complementary relationship in the MOU. So, as I'm hearing this, my question is, I think it might be appropriate for us to turn the question to you guys and ask, what do you think are the next steps? And I second what Myra is saying. We don't want this to extend indefinitely. The sooner we get through this, the better. But what would be the next steps? Or what would be the best process by which to take what we have agreed upon and create a negotiation, a friendly negotiation with that? And OEHR.
So for me, the thing is, for negotiating, we need to stake out our bottom line position. And, because here's what we want, here's what we're willing to take, and then anything in between is fair game. So it's unclear to me in this dynamic, though, if we have a bottom line and they refuse to meet it, and we said, fine, walk away, then what does that mean? Do we even have the will to do that? Because if we have no bottom line, then what's the point? I mean, not what's the point in the work you've been doing, but then they have no leverage to go to Dante and say, no, we really do want some prescription in here. We feel that's very important. Because they'll just, he can just continue to say no.
But I would, if the way the next steps I would foresee or suggest is exactly as what you described. So you've heard comments, you've received comments from, you've done a really magnificent job. I can't speak any language right now. I'm speaking many different languages all day. So echo Hector's comment. Magnificent work. And next up, go to Dante, negotiate, talk, if you receive feedback, and then knowing that we want. Well, at least I think what we want is we don't want the 50,000 foot level, we want to move like 10,000 foot level agreement. Come back to HRC, and I'm willing to vote no on a memorandum. I agree, we need to come to an end in the process. And that end of the process, maybe we don't have an MOU if the MOU isn't done on sufficient terms. So I'm willing to say no, we don't get an MOU if it's not useful.
The one thing I would like to propose is to have some sort of deadline for us to know, okay, we're going to meet on, on Monday we'll meet, by Friday, Amy and I will send, this is what happened at the meeting, by Friday comes. But then for us to have let's say, okay, it's Friday, let's play date, the 10th, by the 15th of the month, we'll have whatever come back. Is it a no? Is it a yes? Is it a, what is it? Because without that kind of time frame, come back from him. So we'll come back to you, to the HRC, and this is what happened at the meeting. This is what the suggestions, these are the proposals. What does the HRC do? Is the HRC okay with this? Is it a no? We'll move forward with this or no? Have that second step as to when do we have this finalized?
So the problem is we have to do that in public meeting.
Well,
so you have
I would prefer to do
September.
it at our next meeting, this day, that's when we're going to vote on it. All right.
Is there?
He should. He should be here.
We can make a special invitation on Monday. And so what it's sounding to me like we are going to document, mostly what we're going to do on Monday, Myra and I, is to document what changes would be requested of Dante OEHR, and then bring that to the September meeting. And we see
What
where we
changes
are.
he is going to request?
Yeah.
He said it was too prescriptive, though, right? He said it was too prescriptive. That was his word.
That's what I heard.
I also think it's too prescriptive. I also think we should fly higher because I think there are things. So if we are trying to create a document that two parties will agree to, then we have to consider what the other party can agree to. So one of the things, for instance, that is in there that I know that he cannot agree to is to prescribe the amount of budget that he gives to us. So I think he can support providing us a staff person without us being able to prescribe what that level is, and support for a budget. But he can't prescribe that staff person is a director level person and that they'll give us $50,000. And that's the kind of language that I see in there, and the kind of language that I think Dante will be unwilling to or unable to commit to.
So,
Did he provide a basis for that statement? Is it
Statement
based
about
on
budgets?
city policy? Is it based on commissioner policy, or is it based on his whim?
It's based on political will and the requests he's received from city commissioners.
So that's another thing to consider about whether we ultimately end up with an agreement or not. If we sign off on something, then we're, number one, creating a precedent. Number two, we're
Creating what?
a precedent. And we're also setting a level that says we accept this, whatever it is. And, like Lenita says, I mean, I have a hard time letting go of things. And so I don't think I've been trying to let go of the fight we've been having for the last 2 years, but I want to let go of it and move on. But if that's how we let go of it, then it'll be that much harder to ever get to that point again.
I would like to say something, and I hope this is not taken in the wrong context, but this is talking, as somebody that came into this, a couple of months ago. I truly respect, the situation that happened. I wasn't here, so I cannot. It's hard for me sometimes to relate and to keep hearing about it, and it's a little bit unmotivating sometimes, because I think at some point, yes, it was awful. Yes, from what I hear, it was not correct. There was a lot of things that happened. At some point, it's time to just focus in what's coming. And we're hearing, there's not a lot of, Donna's email about the comment of the commission is not engaged, and the office. I heard Dante say, I want this commission to be the people who raise the issues to us, so we can act. So you are guys are the informant. So I think there's more value on focusing on that instead of what we used to have. We want to have it back, but if we're only talking about having it back and we cannot kind of move it, I personally I'm struggling with that, and it's making it really hard. And I just want to be honest about it, because I think we should be honest about it.
I think the concern that anchors me in the original ordinance that guided our work and where we are now is grounded in that we were commissioned to have some amount of authority. And we talked about that moral authority as a commission, that was really where we resonated with. As our relationship is shifting, or the work of the HRC is transitioning, it feels as though that authority is completely disregarded or not honored at any level, and that ties from my personal perspective to basic fundamental human rights and whether we're honoring it in the city or not. And it feels so much like it's not being honored, that it's being undermined by politics, which is so against the original ordinance and the advisory committee work that went into the framework for action. I mean, really fundamentally to the touchstone of what the HRC was intended to be. And I think personally that's why it's so challenging for me to shift from that experience we've been through, because it feels so resonant in what we're doing today.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think anybody who's brought into a situation authority, down the river, faces that same reality. It's hard to own the history, and I wouldn't expect the new people to do so, because you didn't been debated, I would second what Tommy Benita had said. But I see not just the history, I see the continuation of that dynamic taking place right in front of us. The disrespect, the disarming of our ability to act is continuing right now with the new people. This is not something that, I don't have to go back to Maria Lisa. I can sit right here and tell you that I've heard at least twice in public settings the director of whatever this office is diss this group, saying that they're not doing anything. You are not doing anything. In public. In public. Absolutely no context for it. There was no reason for it, because nobody raised the question, well, hey, how's the HRC doing? Out of the blue, those comments came. And you know what? That's a continuation of the delegitimizing of this group by the person who should be advocating the strongest for us. So it's not history that I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a fact right now of a person who has made it very clear, at least to me, that he does not have the best interest of this commission in mind or in policy. So that's where I'm sitting right now. And I'll be very frank with you all. I didn't sign on to protect this commission from the political onslaughts of the city. I signed on to do human rights work. That's the only reason I committed myself to this. And I spent hundreds of hours in this commission doing work that I thought was important, and just to see it erode. And now I see it again. So for me, it's not a historic situation. It's a living dynamic which I'm faced with right now. And I have only two ways of dealing with it. Either I focus so much on my work, on the committee, on the commission, and ignore the political reality, or I take head on the political fight that's in front of me. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to do the latter because I'm too tired, I'm too old, and I've done that over and over, and the results are always the same. So I'm not going to do it. If I can't get anybody else to join in that, so be it. That's your will. I have high hopes for you all. And even in whatever configuration comes out of this, I know that you will be doing incredibly important work. But I don't want to be part of it. Because I don't want to have to sit here every day and face that person or that group of people, including the commissioner, who has done very little to sustain and energize and resource this incredible group of people.
I would agree with that 100%. And I think one of the things that's being said here, and one of the things I said in front of council is we have to acknowledge that this is a different place than what was set up before. It's going to a different place. And what we have to do as a group is exactly that. Carve out what is the bottom line at that place, and what does it mean for our work. I am willing to continue to accept and work through those compromises. That's what I've been doing. Because I don't think it best serves our work, but I think it better serves our work to try to do that at this point. Because I don't know that the alternative is any better.
In terms of going forward, I appreciate both the honest discussion. And to go forward, if you were to take back the memorandum, work with Dante, find out where his office is coming from, that comes back here. And if we have on the agenda a set, like, this is what we're going to talk about, like, we're going to discuss this, and at the next meeting, so it would be in the September meeting, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it may be. And then we finish that discussion, and then we take a vote. And then we're able, so we now know either we respected the MOU, or we know there's still some place for a degree, whatever it may be, we'll know. And then we can move on. And then either we have an MOU, we don't have an MOU, we're on our focus on the stuff that we all signed up to do and not sort of this de-energizing work of we've been talking about for 2 years, that it really energizes me. So I think that's a good way to move on.
And it's going to exist in what is not only a political reality, but just a very grounded reality. This is the reality before us. And the other part of that reality is, just like Hector said, the amount of energy it would take to change that reality, the inertia it would take. And I think we'd have to make a conscious decision to spend that energy to do that. In a lot of different ways, to change the course of wherever we're headed.
Which we've had some discussions about that around the charter,
right.
Getting into the charter and the energy it takes to do that. And I agree with all my other colleagues. I greatly appreciate the honesty, and I appreciate the difficult situation that the newer folks are in with this. And it's not my intent to de-energize or drag us back. I guess it's not really moving on, but what I have just done is sort of put that part out of my mind and said, I cannot expect help from OEHR.
Period.
And so whatever work we do, we have to figure out how to do it on our own. And I'm fine with that. And so to me, if we walk away from the MOU, that's what we're saying, which I've already said. And so that, and Emily had said many times during the struggle, let's just do our work. And so, so that, in terms of being the opposite of, demotivating or whatever, that I think is just where we need to put ourselves mentally. Is okay, fine, we got to do it on our own.
It's just a little sad for the city.
Without question.
And someone needs to know that. That's the thing. So I do think that it would behoove you guys in the discussion that you share that information. Dante doesn't really care that much about the past. He wasn't here, and it's not his thing. But I would say, Alan, if you ever have an opportunity in that conversation, you say, whatever, if he says, well, I can't give you any money, I can't do this, whatever, I would point out to him, okay, we'll do whatever, we're going to work it out. We have our bottom line. I agree we should have one, whatever it is, and perhaps we can figure that out in the next month. But what you're saying to us is very sad for our city. And I don't think I just think it needs to be made known, and I think the commissioners, all of the commissioners in the mayor need to know as well. And then we move on. We're already moving on. We're doing stuff with very little now. And it's sad that we have to.
Yes.
The city should be able to do better.
I wouldn't say that it's sad that we have. It's sad that we've been put in this position. Okay, so we have literally been put in this position. So many times when I talk about it, I talk about it as not our choosing. So.
Yeah. Frankly, for me, I trust you guys to come up, to listen, and to come back with us with something that we can either approve or not approve, and then we'll just go on.
All right, let's move on. So we can. Thank you. So as part of that, there are actually two other pieces organizationally. One, at the executive committee, we talked a little bit about the literal structure internally of HRC committees as it was formed in the strategic plan. Again, I still contend that the strategic plan was sort of aspirational. It doesn't prescribe us anything. So one of the things we talked about, and I'll pass this out, I created a graphic that isn't, it's really, truly is a draft for us to discuss. But for me, I'm a very visual person, so it's far easier for me to look at something and talk about it. So the big change that you will see there near the bottom is one of the things we talked about in the executive committee was, I've got to go back, because in the strategic plan we had sort of four of those functional committees. And so in this draft, what you see is we've combined the committee that was called Education and Engagement with the one that is called Communications and Infrastructure into one that is called Communication and Engagement. So instead of having four big committees, we have these three, and that communications and engagement committee kind of combines the efforts that would have been spread into those two. One of the things, as I was putting this together, I realized that this will come up potentially in conversations, that the education piece kind of drops out, but we can talk about how that fits in. The other thing I'll say about this is it doesn't prescribe reporting. It's a way for us to organize our thoughts on what we're doing. So if we have for instance, HTTF doesn't report up to public policy and then report up to the commission. It's just a way for us to organize where we set boxes down. So that's not real reporting stuff, but for me, it's an easy way to figure out the things we're doing and along in what areas. So as we, yeah. Yeah, and so again, the one change would be is because then we got to start filling the boxes with people and stuff we're doing. So once we agree on the titles and the names, this is. We wanted to apologize to Donna. We're not taking over race talks. That's the placeholder for us to relate to race talks. So if Donna sees this, Donna, if you see this, you need to know that. We're not taking over race talks. That is our partnership with race talks. So that's just how we think about it.
Don't worry, she won't.
Can we, so if something comes up, it will be like under any of these three categories, right?
Yes.
Like, if somebody has an idea, well, we would like to learn this, so it goes automatically to one of the three.
It does, and one of the functions, and we'll talk about, one of the functions that those top three boxes could play is vetting those ideas, for instance. So that if we had issues that came up along police accountability, we would vet it up through CPRC. The public policy one is very big, and so, but any of those pieces that came, for instance, if we wanted to talk about economic justice and public policy, we might vet it out through the Public Policy Committee. And so same thing. And same with community engagement events and other pieces and communication will kind of come up through there. And so the education piece that got dropped off might have to come up through executive committee or the full commission.
Just for my mind, and you've heard me say this, I believe that those three, that educate, forget what they were now, the things we voted on, those things, education is one of them. We are all responsible for that. Every single box on here does that.
That's right. And that's why it doesn't fall off. But if there was a general one, we have to pick it up for general.
Yeah, I appreciate this, and I'm not sure if you're going to be asking for any kind of approval or voting on it. So before you do, I just would like to say I would certainly need time to digest it and weave in what's going to be happening very soon with the assets mapping stuff, because I think there's a lot of information that we'll be gathering in the near future and identify what people are ready, available to bring to the table. Stephen said earlier today at lunch, that will inform the details of this, plus maybe some things shifting around.
So, with the three major committees, we'll starting with the middle one. Will Emily remain chair of that one, or since it's a new merge, or will that be Mark? You're nominating people?
No, we have to go to the bylaws, and I think actually what it says is the committees will select their chairs. So we would find volunteers for each of the committees. We certainly, from this level, could recommend who we think should chair each committee. But so we do need to get it, and that was one thing we could do. We could talk about who wants to be on those and who wants to.
That really resonates with my understanding of structure. I'm going to focus on the top part. To me, that's the most important for me. In the way you set it up, we are accountable to the community directly. And I like the fragmented lines that go out to connect with city council and the office directly, because that is a collegial relationship as opposed to authoritarian relationship. In terms of leadership, we had some discussion about how to determine the chair for CPRC, in that we have 5 commissioners and 10 members that are not on the commission. And the thinking has been that it is critical to have the commissioner be the chair of that particular group. I don't know if everyone agrees with that or not, but I think the police bureau would feel comfortable with having a commissioner. I don't know the community people, how they would feel. That's something that I think I don't suggest it can be discussed further length.
Isn't that written in the tweet bylaw? Is that part?
No. So that's the other thing is, as we come out with the strategic plan and we have something like this, we need to prescribe a little bit more in the bylaws how those things work. And who, for instance, can, so any community, any of the committees, now we have bigger ones, any of the committees that involve community people, could they be the chair of those? That actually is the bylaws.
I thought we included that part.
I don't know actually.
I'm talking about our tweet one.
Oh, in the
ones that we were
right.
supposed to bring last
Exactly.
meeting where we.
So that's why you're starting.
Picked it up.
That's right. That's why you're starting to see some changes to bylaws, because there isn't enough in the bylaws to tell us how to operate a structure like this. Because before, the only big committee we had was the CRC. So you'll see those coming forward.
Yeah. Also, our committee has a draft right now of
Protocols.
Protocols.
Right, that we might bring in to look at for all committees.
Yeah, and what we wanted to do is, as we finalize them, is to bring to you for your approval as a way for CPRC to do its business.
So I think we'll convene another small group to do some of that work also.
So do the bylaws have to read specifically how that would be organized, or can perhaps the bylaws be changed in a way so it's open-ended and we're able to design it as we need to?
Right.
What I would encourage.
Right. I agree. Bylaws should be that also. But there may be cases where, like the CPRC, when you do say it has to be.
Sure.
If that's our design. Because that one's very specific.
You voted on it. We haven't written that in the tweet.
It's kind of clarification. So that the new bylaw, there's that option for community members to lead any HRC committee. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that what you're saying, Victor? Maybe I'm just making it up.
No. Without prescription, there's the opportunity that they could.
Right now,
okay. I was like, that's weird.
Right now, the only committee that has actual members, I think, is CPRC from outside the commission.
It has them from outside.
So that's, right now, they're the ones who fit that category.
But
So
there could be an option for community members to be part of these committees but not
Yeah.
chairs. Oh, got it. Okay.
And if that's our desire, then we need to prescribe that, because it could happen somewhere like CPRC.
Got it.
So yeah, so I don't know that we need to vote on these titles, but again, we need to figure out at some point how do we fill them and what do they do and start moving.
Why can't, I mean, I don't think they have to vote now. Now that everybody has this, can we
Do some digestion.
sort of agree to, for me, I would like to vote on it and fill it
Yeah.
next time.
Next time, yeah. So, sorry. I was just going to say, like I said, I think we're going to have a lot of information from on the 11th, on that Saturday. And I guess we can prepare something that would inform that September meeting and discussion.
You don't think that people should just say this is the Canadian State no?
Well, I'll speak for myself for a second. I need the opportunity to visit with as many of you as I can, so I can throw by my ideas at you, what kind of projects, where is there resonance, and so I can see where there might be room for additional things that are not represented here. So that, for example, CPRC is still, as far as I understand, there's not room for a commissioner to join that at this time. And so if I want to work in that vein, what's going to be the avenue for that to happen? So I'm talking about how do we get really creative beyond it's informed by some gathering that is about to happen.
And I think one last comment on that is that one thing that ultimately we would like to get out of is a more like even more collaboration between us and understanding who we are, where we come from, what can we bring to this instead of I want to do this and I think I can do it on my own. It's more like together.
So along those lines, one of the steps we do have coming and we need to get to eventually is we need to do, as a group, a work plan. All we do is strategic planning. So at some point, that's what we'll do. The asset mapping will inform it. This will inform. So at some point, that might, we're piling a lot of things on September, but September would have been a good point for us to do that. To say, so for instance, we have this piece that Donna brought forward about community engagement. So we need to do a work planning session. What work are we going to do that we're not doing now? Recognizing that here are the other things, three other things we've signed up for already. So that meeting is to come. That meeting is very concrete on what can we do, what will we do, and who's doing it. So, and it has to fit inside our structures. Dave,
why is the nominating committee off to the side of the executive committee, and why isn't one another of the three? Why isn't it a fourth, or at least under the communications engagement?
I didn't think it necessarily fit in our communications as much because it comes and goes so much is why.
It actually doesn't go.
Yeah, we can talk about it though, because if we want it to serve, for instance, as a kind of constant recruitment tool, then it might live differently. But right now, it kind of it ramps up and it goes away and ramps up and goes away. So we need to talk about that as its function, which. In that case, if it was recruiting, I would agree with you, would go under engagement. But I don't see it as that.
Technically, the committee exists. It's just
right. The work, they don't consistently do work other than to vet applications.
So then why isn't its own committee next to the other three?
I just didn't want to make it any wider.
Well, also, I think
that was the most logical spot for it. Truly, though, it was it's the most, to me, it's the most logical spot to put administrative type work. So if we change it to be an engagement piece, I think it would work. And we would ask it to handle a lot of our recruiting function.
And it's coming up, right? Like
yeah.
We're
going to talk about that here next.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is to add under the CPRC the ICE and local law enforcement task force. Since
did you put it there under public policy?
Well, it was specifically created as a task force of the CPRC.
Well, that's good because CPRC needed to run it.
There's more sense in that.
Good luck.
What is the group called?
Did we ever call it that? We just called it ICE/local law enforcement task force.
Good, thank you. I had that in my earlier ones, but didn't go off. I would not have put it. Is there something else up here?
Our work should drive the committees as opposed to the committees driving our work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Yay.
And so Amy's point will drive some of it, but I feel like we've captured most of what we're. But eventually you see that's not true.
Yeah, it sounds like if people can bring their suggestions, there's going to be stuff to hash out in September.
Amy brought up a really fun thing in a second or two. Because some of this committee work has been done by personal interest, does that mean that the terms are are for infinity? And so what she said is very important. There may be others here who would like to serve in a certain capacity to deal with the fact that there is a limitation. We need to talk I hate more structure, but about terms.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that too as part of our bylaws and kind of organizational piece. Yeah.
Only if creating terms will get the work done better or different.
But you see an example. You've heard examples there. Where somebody
well, Damon came on. Fortunately, there wasn't open when he came on at that time, but he was.
Wait, when you say terms, you're referring to terms of on committee.
Yeah.
And serving in committee functions. Yeah.
So that's part of our language too. That
right. So we've started to do that. We've
Yeah,
started to do that.
but then again, terms might be just one solution. There
That's right.
might be other ways around the design.
That are related to structure and design.
Correct.
Exactly. So that's part of the conversation to come. So good. Let's do this in September then. We'll have a little bit more informed, but I do want to get that in front of you as a way to understand how we think about what we do.
Could you perhaps, and you'd be doing this in the exec meeting, just keep in your mind that I would like to be able to approve this next time?
Yes.
To begin populating.
Yeah.
You know, we need to get going.
Donna's not here, but is there somebody who can just briefly speak to Donna's email? I know that Diallo said that he had some energy around it and heard some urgency. I guess I didn't because I clicked into it and it didn't work for me. So is there somebody that? Because I don't think that comment was actually directed at us. I think it was directed at city government and city council, not at us.
Tell us what it said. I don't know.
It was something
Really?
like get your
I think
voice
it was
heard.
interesting.
It was
Really? Okay.
That's okay. It's just one.
Yeah.
something about get your voice heard, and she said that she's been saying that we need to be a part of the community, and she said that it was really important, and I agreed. Something at the last thing that we went to with Dante and the mayor, I forget what it was.
You meant city council?
Yeah, at the city council, one of the commissioners said he doesn't want to duplicate efforts.
Oh, yeah.
Make fish.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but the thing is that nobody else is really as part of the community as much as we are, and it is kind of like, I mean, it is the people we answer to. It is the people who give us power and authority without doing much for nothing. So I was just saying, I felt the urgency that we needed to quickly be a part of the community, asking them, teaching them whatnot.
So when I clicked on that link too, it didn't work, and so I have
It didn't
no
work for me
idea
either.
what
I
we're
was on
talking about.
Facebook.
So I actually, so there is more to it that we clicked through. Okay, go.
I know that it was something on Facebook. I didn't see it because I don't have Facebook, but I do know that it was saying the community couldn't rely on us as far as being the people to speak for them. They needed to just speak it and get their voices heard.
Who was saying this?
It was, I don't know. Somebody
Those were all the problems.
15,000 people said it.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to be clear real quick, what I understood, it was referring to a Facebook event, an HRC, that was put through HRC. So somebody was announcing an HRC event through Facebook, and then somebody else made the comment of, get your voice heard, show up and get your voice heard, referring to the fact that the HRC is not doing that. And that's generally one of the two concerns that I have been hearing over the past few months as I'm dabbling about. So yeah, I was happy that you jumped into that, and I agree. I just think it's opportunity for us to dive into.
I'm going to clarify because one, I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that we're listening from the community, but I still don't think that comment was directed as the event that was connected to was the Office of Equity and Human Rights annual work plan presentation.
It's not us.
Yeah.
So I think that. So anyway, but I don't disagree with the comment, and my hope is that if there are folks that have energy around community engagement, that will bring that forward, and Donna will, and we'll figure out how to do it.
Right now.
We'll do it.
What we're doing.
So that's also to come, because I think that's in our plan.
I think part of that too, though, is like the majority of our time is dedicated to that and not to how you would, to what dump they think of us, or to what we might.
But to those ends, this is our monthly meeting. This is our opportunity to do that work. That isn't really specifically human rights. This is the opportunity we have to vote on structures, vote on bylaws, to do the stuff that if anybody from the public came here to find out about human rights, you're like, what on earth is
Yeah.
But that being said, I do think, and I know we're all busy and have millions of other things to do, but my view, again, chart out is that through the various committees and task forces that we create and start working on, that those generate events that the public can be part of and can participate in. And that's how we engage the public, because we'll be working on issues that they care about. I mean, I think the issue you brought up about housing and the foreclosure and evictions is a perfect example of that. I don't know that it fits exactly with fair housing, but we need to look into it. And we need to figure out, is there a way that task force addresses it? Is there a way someone else in the commission addresses it? Or we just as a commission address it? But, so I think that substantive human rights work largely will be done outside of this meeting. And that's what we need to, we've been moving towards, I don't want to say we haven't, but I don't think we have always understood that. I know I have.
Do you think that, so the asset mapping is not happening at a meeting, it's happening at Myra's house. Part of asset mapping, after asset mapping, would it be natural for us to go to a work plan and to start saying, okay, what are the issues and asking the community? Maybe that's our first step, instead of holding things that we think the community will care about, asking the community, what do you care about?
How do you ask the community?
Leaders, asking community leaders.
Okay. I agree with you. However, some of us are community leaders already, and that's why we're around this table. And Donita connects with those community leaders all the time. And so does Damon, and so does
the
Lauren.
asset mapping, we have map our assets and say, who can we ask?
Yeah.
And then it goes to that. But, Donita can't say everything that the community needs.
No, of course
She
not.
has to go to those communities.
Well, that's what our strategic plan allows us to do. That's the discover. That is my job. That's what we told ourselves.
I want to leave that because it's part of a bigger conversation about how we do our work around that. But again, for me, I agree that especially something like a big community engagement event happens outside of this time. This time is very much reserved for the business of the commission, unfortunately, because we'll meet once a month. So that does happen outside. But it needs to be purposeful, and we need to figure out how we do it, and it's not just the folks.
And sorry.
No, I'm just agreeing.
What my vision of it is that we don't, our connection with each other becomes less this meeting. And I know you guys because I come to this meeting, but in my vision of the future, there would be human rights events like every other week, and that's where I would be seeing all of you and we'd be participating.
The Portland Commission on Disabilities meets like this every other month. Actually, they might meet quarterly.
Wow.
Yeah, and they have a huge set of number of members and a huge set of committees. So they do the work. So the work can be done differently. So anyway, because it's kind of interesting that I looked at that and I was like, oh. So
They also have one staff person committed to the
committee. That's right.
Which would be.
Thank you for reminding us.
But that would be the situation that actually I don't think Patrick's full time.
Yes.
Specialist.
Let's move on.
He's a specialist.
You're right. Actually, you might say the word
Keep going.
So let's do some quick updates. So 6:45 now. We have a couple of minutes to do updates on committees and.
I have updates. I want to share.
Oh, we have big ones. I'm sorry. You're right.
Can we specify what a couple minutes really means?
I would, since we're out of our time now, could we, people who are here, agree to extend for 15 minutes?
I'll move to extend.
That is second. And then I can leave this second.
Huh? Yeah.
Go for 15 more minutes?
Yeah. Okay. So, I apologize. I did forget that we need to talk about those big events. But let's talk about nominating committee process now because of timing. Because terms end
The end of October.
End of October.
Okay. There are 5 of you, or 5 of us, whose terms are up at the end of October. I do not remember who it was. I'm sorry. Except that Alan, Kyle, Diallo. I don't remember.
No, Hector and I end.
No.
Mine does not end.
No, he
Another
doesn't.
year.
I do.
I thought it did.
You.
Oh.
And then somebody.
I thought I volunteered to end early, but okay. You'll tell
find
us.
your volunteer. volunteer.
You'll tell us, Malloy. We'll do what you said.
So the point is, there's a process in place for the nominating committee to go back out and ask the folks whose terms are expiring, are they going to re-up, which will tell us, inform us how many spots we may need to recruit for in October. The other piece around this is that the chair and vice chair terms, I'm not sure why they don't end at the exact same time, but the new chair's first meeting is October, I think.
That's usually correct.
That's on the first.
Yeah. And so,
Because we didn't have
No,
vice
we
chair.
first met in November.
Was it November?
Because we met after the election.
Oh, okay.
We all were so happy.
That's right.
so we'll also be looking for new leadership in the HRC. I think it's always a value that we, terms are a year for a reason. I think it's a lot of work, and it gives other people opportunity to step into leadership roles. So those roles will be available to folks. So if you're considering working in leadership, please contact me. I'll start talking to some folks so that we can also start identifying people.
It is not an official policy that the vice chair becomes the chair.
It's neither an official policy that the vice chair becomes the chair or that the chair serves only for 1 year, but that's how we've been practicing since
I kept saying that. I kept telling you it wasn't like that. You kept telling me it wasn't. Yeah.
I thought it was too.
Then I kept listening. No,
It's actually not. But it's the way we've practiced it so far. But if there are certainly there are leadership opportunities for folks.
Is Jeff given up to the role to Danita to Alan?
Yeah.
And you were the vice chair.
I wasn't the vice chair. Because Arlen was the vice chair.
Oh, yeah.
At his first meeting, he was the one that.
So we've broken the precedent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because our
Because Arlen was vacant.
Doesn't matter.
So that's the other part of nominating and recruiting. And so the other thing is that any of the committees that we have community members for, we would also concurrently recruit for at the same time. So right, we did that last time at CPRC. So we'll do that at the same time. So you will know, commission members will know as soon as we can, let you know, as soon as they get through the process of figuring out how many openings there are, so that you can start contacting your communities to let them know that we are recruiting positions.
So, I'm really sad to see people leaving because they're all great. But are we still going to be able to come to the people that left and ask for information or help, or if they know community members that could?
Good point. I actually thought about that before also. Let's talk about that.
You might not want to hear from us.
I think there might be a role for folks who are term limited out of the HRC. That's one of the things that's about. You can only serve 2 terms.
Yeah. But nobody who's up this time is running for that process.
But I agree there might be a role. So that's nominating committee. Any updates from CPRC?
First update is that I would like to place, on behalf of CPRC, a motion on the table to allocate some funds to the Miracles Club to host us at our last meeting. It was an incredible experience, and I don't know who began the practice of offering a gift of thank you to right before we meet, but I think it's very appropriate. So we talked about it, Alan. What did we say? A couple of breaks or?
Who are they?
The Miracles Club.
I have the Miracles Club is they provide space for people in recovery to have peer support, predominantly African American men, and they in the last year have opened along MLK big center and an apartment. So the other piece about Miracles Club is that one of the CPRC community members is very involved in Miracles Club, and I went to that CPRC meeting. That was my experience. One of the people who was there as a staff member for Miracles Club was the father of Keith Notice. So does everybody know that name?
Fred.
I'm sorry?
It's Fred. It's his name. The dad.
Keith Notice was killed by police officers. And so to me, it was very powerful to be sitting in that room and have the community police
disconnect between the ongoing 12-step programs and the African American community. And so they decided, well, maybe we need to form one. And that has evolved over the years into what we now have is this incredible building in MLK with, I think, 26 units for sober people. And they're tough as can be. If you're found to be using, you have 2 days to vacate the premises. The person who serves on our committee herself is a 12-step person, and very honestly and very openly tells a story about her relationship with the police, which over the years has not been very positive. But her last comments at that table, at that meeting, and she shared with her brothers and sisters who were there from the Miracles Club, that by opening myself up to this process, talking about the 5 cops and the others are on 10, she said that I now have, 15 friends or something like that. Yeah, family, right, thank you. So the place is incredible. They have one-to-one services. They say they have all sorts of services that apply. The city supported them with a $500,000 grant many years ago so they could have the starting for this building project, which cost about $100 million. Anyway, it's a fabulous place. They always use the city.
Yeah, we used to go there. Me and my mom did, and my brother and sister. They also have like dances there and stuff. It's cool, but the name is perfect.
So are you making a motion?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I'll second Victor's motion. Are you, but I should say, are you asking the
Executive Committee,
to come up with something?
Thank you, that's right, I did that.
I second what the second thing.
And with a max to 5,000.
I agree. Friendly amendment that should be up to 500. And actually, what I was recommended to do is actually to talk with Miracles Club and work with them to find something that we can sponsor that appropriately fits our mission for them, similar to what we should do here. So, because recovery doesn't actually fit our mission, but if we can find something that they can do to help the community along with discrimination, inclusion.
I'm sure it is.
We have some ideas.
I just have a side question about help. I know people with felonies have a hard time finding jobs and finding places to live. Is there anything that we can say or think or do about that?
We have some.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, since you're an accountant, maybe you can help me characterize that.
Yes.
Transfer of assets.
Yes.
Because it creates this.
Rent.
What we would do, I think,
How to build that.
what we do is make a contribution. We make a contribution in both places on their website, the easiest way possible, which is website with a P card, and then work with them to commit those funds to a project that, on their side, that fits our mission.
Okay. Yes, P card.
And for the rest of our report, I'd like David to share on the subcommittee.
I think we have to vote.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So all those in favor of Hector's motion to us to support Miracles Club with a contribution, CPRC's motion to the HRC to support Miracles Club up to $500 to be decided and worked out with the Exec Committee and Miracles Club. By show of hands tonight.
Aye. Thank you.
Have you ever heard of the concept of
Any abstentions? Thank you.
Have you ever heard of the concept of voting with your dollars, voting with your money? Just waste off.
Yeah. Every Sunday I hear that. David, would you share what the subcommittee is doing? This is right.
Briefly, because Emily has to leave.
Oh, okay.
Moving forward, the subcommittee is doing presentations to different stakeholder groups, MF Cabelli, Deanna Weston, and Assistant Chief Larry O'Day on what it is we're doing in regards to the training to address the issue of institutionality.
So those stakeholder groups are?
So far, we did have a CPRC, did a feature on behalf of the Overseeing Leadership Council last week, which is the Police Bureau's version of the Citywide Equity Committee. every bureau has their equity committee, and then they each have a representative they send to the citywide equity committee, and so did presentation to DIP. That's their acronym for PPB. So
we'll send you a copy of a document which they have been drafting, working on, that shows their the goals and their training objectives.
Good. And then we'll get that presentation here also.
That was
Emily, I'm sorry.
I have to go. So I just want to update you on two events that our currently unnamed committee is working on. One is the candidate forum. We have a date that all of them have agreed to participate in. We will hope that they actually follow through with what they said they were going to do. That is September 19th. So I have contacted our whole committee. I believe our committee is going to meet this Friday at noon to solidify a location for the event and begin our publicity to engage the public on this issue. We are asking the candidates to answer questions regarding human rights issues.
Super.
Okay, that's happened. We had a date, we went back to the drawing board and started again. And we now have another.
Candidate one,
No, that's what we're going to completely decide by Friday. 7:30 p.m. So that's that one. And should you like to work on this, we're meeting Friday. And currently no location has been chosen. However, I will let you know.
You'll let us know after the meeting.
Then I only reported to the current members of CBU, which is Donita, Donna, and me. I think I can see now.
Oh, you see something? Yeah.
Is that regarding the Human Rights Recognition event for December 10th, we got a location and free food. The food is free. We are being hosted at Northwest Natural. Northwest Natural has great meeting space, and they are providing the lunch for 120 people. And it is now our job, as soon as we get this candidate thing off the ground, or even now, it is now our job to move forward and begin figuring out how we're going to choose these honorees and what we're going to be doing at this event. It's set. It's Monday, December 10th, Human Rights Day. It's a lunch.
Can we do everything at Northwest Natural now?
Say that again, please.
Can we do everything?
It is not my goal to save money for the city of Portland. I didn't try to get free food. They offered it. I didn't ask for it. I said, how much is the lunch going to be? And that's when they told me they were hosting it.
Wow.
So that's the way it is. That's what's happening. 11:45. Either 11:45 or 11:30 till 1:15 or 1:30. What I would really like to do, is before we leave here, I'd like to have some hands of people who would like to work on this. Because if there were people who volunteered before, I lost your names. So I don't want to do this by myself.
What are you asking for?
To work on the event.
Human Rights Day.
Human Rights Day.
Human Rights Day.
Human Rights Day award recognition event.
Award recognition. I'll help you.
Thank you.
Stephen has hand up.
I guess I have a question.
Oh, wait, a question.
Okay, so Donita, I'm going to assume you're just going to be on it still.
I was going to say, I'm on.
Okay.
I'm in.
Human rights, let's say.
Currently, it's called Human Rights Day or Human Rights Awards Recognition Event. We need to think up something else. That's not where we are now. Hey, I got you a place with free food. I was kind of impressed with myself. So I've got Donita, Diallo, and me. And I'm going to assume
About the
Donna.
voting piece, any discrimination. So we're looking at everything.
Somebody needs to join the committee.
Never use that. That was more.
Currently, I have Donita and Diallo on here, and I'm assuming Donna is going to still remain because she was. Well, she wasn't. It was actually Donita and me decided. So
I could probably help.
Alan,
Because
yeah.
we don't want to talk about how we did the award.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. 4 people is just fine. I just don't want to be by myself.
I can buy the trophy.
So, thank you.
I'm sorry, on the candidates thing on Friday, are you guys talking about classrooms? at that, or are you still?
We might. We're at least going to talk about format and the kinds of
Yeah.
questions we want. Yeah.
Get started on that.
We'd solidify location.
And we're going to confirm whatever location it will be on site. So yeah, if the kinds of questions we are going to ask are, should you have ideas about the kinds of questions you would like us to ask, please put them forward to me. If you're not on the committee.
Do you have a human rights lens to a water bureau issue?
Pass it straight out. All right.
We have to start on the water bureau.
It's an economic justice issue.
They're building a pump station next door to my house. I
That
don't
might
know
not be
the
a human
report.
rights issue. That might be something. Friends, thank you. That was an excellent report, Emily, in a very abbreviated time. Anything else that anyone wants to say in closing? We didn't ask for housing segregation, but we have budget for that.
We've got one swimming next week.
And you know, Commissioner Fish was like, let's not work on that.
I have a meeting with Commissioner Fish in 2 weeks.
Good.
So Stephen's hoping to say something.
Yes.
Just an issue of sort of public concern. So there was an officer involved shooting 2 days ago, fatal one, Billy Layton Sims, who was fatally shot. And I think that's, I give that up. I don't know.
Bethany.
What?
Bethany.
Outside of town.
Yeah, police accountability, I think, is very young potato for them.
When's the next CPRC meeting?
What?
The next CPRC meeting?
Aren't they usually third, fourth?
Fourth, what is it?
Third Wednesday.
The third Wednesday of every.
HTTF is going to be meeting the second Thursday,
Yeah.
starting on the 9th.
Uh-oh.
Kyle wanted to make sure that-
Oh, shoot, I think that's also my camera.
I'm sure Donna would want someone to mention that next Tuesday is Race Talks.
It's the film, right?
Yeah.
It's
Race Power Illusion.
Race Power Illusion Part 3?
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Emily.